How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Draw with Keith. I'll give everyone a chance to tune in here. This is a feature of Connor Prairie at home. We're going to draw a few different things today. Well, a couple different things. All right, so today we are going to draw the Curtis house. This house is in Prairie Town, and it is near the blacksmith shop. So to get started, I don't know how many of you have drawn a home before, but it can be kind of tricky sometimes to get the proportions right. There's different ways to draw a home. You could draw straight up as a box. You could draw a more three-dimensional structure, but I'm actually going to draw the three-dimensional structure to make it a little more challenging for everyone. So let's get started. All right, the Curtis home. So we'll start with a simple rectangle. I don't know a ton of history on this home, but it's a structure that existed in 1836, Prairie Town. And it's a beautifully laid out home with a beautiful garden in the back, and it's part of the blacksmith shop that's nearby. So you start with your fence. Not fence, the front of your house. And then you take, and to do a three-dimensional element, you kind of do an angle to your structure. So if you do the angle, not straight with the bottom of the structure, but at an angle, then you start building your three-dimensional structure. There's a lot of drawing basics out there. Some of the initial drawing basics are the ability to recognize edges, lines, and angles. That's one of the key drawing basics. So if you can look at an object and figure out, oh, that line goes back. If it were flat in front of me, it would be going back and not flush with the front of the house. Then you realize, oh, this is three-dimensional, this is not 2D. So I'm doing the chimney on this structure with the roof line going at an angle into the chimney. You have your other roof line at the same angle as this one, and then you'll connect the two. Since this line goes at an angle into the chimney and then behind, the top of your house will also be behind. So keep the placement of your left chimney the same as your right chimney. And you can tuck that behind the roof line. And then if you look at it, this should mirror this, but it just happens to be on the left side. I'll let you guys catch up for a second. How's everyone doing today? It's a little dreary out, unfortunately, but a great day to draw inside. I don't know how many of you tuned in last time we did this. We drew our English longhorn and the beautiful balloon at Connor Prairie. Today we're going to be doing hogs and homes. So I'm drawing the Curtis home, and we're going to do our Ossabaw Island hogs. So let's continue with the Curtis house. The Curtis house is one of my favorite structures at Connor Prairie, mainly because it's kind of tucked back in Prairie Town. It's got a beautiful setting that if the trees in the back were gone, it would overlook the whole prairie. And so at winter right now, it's definitely clear and you can see. So here I just added, I believe this is, I don't know the technical term, maybe some of you on the line know, but this is where they store or can put wood in and dry it. All right, let's continue. So I'm going to add some trim to this house. These are the lines of the trim. If you guys can think of your own house, it probably more than likely has trim. All right. So you take the trim up the house, just follow the edges of your house. The trim goes on the sides and the roof line. And just kind of keep a straight hand with that. Another skill in your drawing basics is to reckon proportions and perspective. So, like I said earlier, if you keep your proportions in perspective at the correct angles, you will be able to draw a three-dimensional image. So, thankfully, the front of the house is pretty flat. We're keeping it that way anyway. And I already put that line in the wrong place, but that's okay. We're sketching right now. We're going to come back with our Sharpies. If you do your door just as a rectangle, then it's pretty straightforward and flat. That's why I kept the front of the house flat, so that it makes it a little easier. You could easily take this house and do your generic house that you've all seen. All right, so I'm going to take our chimneys up a little further, as they have a nice little feature at the top where the brick kind of protrudes. And it's a nice little element detail in this house. I know this house is an older structure that was repurposed for Prairie Town to be the Curtis house. It's been a few things over the years, but it's the Curtis house. And there's a lot of history to it. So now I'm drawing the windows that actually go right under the roof line. There's a lot of details in the house. It's a little more challenging with a structure that's not an animal, because you kind of have to put a little more care into your lines versus an animal, because an animal's natural, and you know, if you change a line, that's okay, because then it just looks like a different form of that animal. All right, so the next set of windows is right below that. We're going to keep the top of those windows in line with the door. Adding in our frames. So once we come back and use our Sharpie, that'll really help eliminate those lines. We'll be able to know what lines are important, what lines aren't. So I'm just adding in some benches here that are in front of the house. Let you guys catch up for a second. Another element of drawing basics are deciphering shadow, highlights, and gradations of tone. So shadows are, if you have a little corner here, it's a little more highlighted or a little more shadowy in the corners versus the front of the house, and not the whole thing is shadowed, and the whole thing is not shadowed. So just elements that are in the corner. And everyone, be sure, if you are drawing along with me, or if you're watching this later, be sure to tag Connor Prairie at Home and Connor Prairie in your post. We'd love to see your work. You can comment on this video if you want. All right, so there's our house. It does have siding, which we might put some detail in of that just to get the idea. And it does have shingles, but we're not gonna blatantly draw each line because that'll really make our image cluttered. And that's just a style preference. You can do each line if you want, but I prefer to keep it kind of simple. All right, now let's come back with our Sharpie. Here you can start really anywhere you want and just kind of add in your lines. And this helps those sketch lines kind of fade to the back, and then your Sharpie lines become the important lines. So you can really lock in that three-dimensional shape. You really have to keep a steady hand. It can be challenging, but you could also just take it slow, that helps. You have to go as fast as me. So you can already see a few of my air lines are just disappearing because I'm not highlighting them with the Sharpie. When I'm done with all these, we will post them to our YouTube channel for you to rewatch or share in other places besides Facebook. And we will also make the images available for download and coloring at home. All right, now I'm adding in the door frame. Just keep a steady hand for those more specific lines. And I am going to add in the window elements a little lighter. Let you guys catch up for a second. I'm seeing a few comments come through. Thanks, Trina. Jennifer, yes, this video will be available later. It'll also be on YouTube. And your 6-year-old should definitely watch, definitely share. Post a picture of their work. We would love to see it. I'm not going to color this today, but you can certainly color it. The house is yellow with blue trim, red brick, blue front door, just adding a little door and window details. Like I said, these windows go under the roof line, so they kind of disappear a little more than the bottom windows. So I'm gently drawing in those, I think they're called sashes, but if you do them too thick, it'll really just muddy up the image. I'll draw in my benches. If you guys have any questions, let me know as I go. You tell me to slow down if you want to. And there's the Curtis house in Prairie Town. Now, like I said, I'm going to add in a little bit of the siding detail, put in a little more trim, in the form of just light lines, kind of just to echo the fact that there is siding, but not explicitly draw in the siding. I believe the firewood panel on the side, the jet out, has wood that goes more of an up and down, not the horizontal like the siding. So then the roof line, you can also draw in some lines to just represent, oh, there's shingles up there. You can also add in a little shingle detail. So you see, you get the idea that there's a roof, but it's not blatant. Okay? And obviously, feel free to add in any trees you want, whatever you want. All right, so there is the Curtis home. can also do the same with the brick. Just a little up and down detail. There you go. Now over here would be the blacksmith home or shop, and log cabins over here. And it does have a little picket fence that you could add around if you wanted, but you don't have to. And there you go, there's the Curtis home. Again, I'll make this image available later for you guys to download and check out. All right, let's move on and do another image. This time we're going to do an animal. Everyone loves animals. And like I said, you can get a little more elaborate with these. Not elaborate, but your lines don't have to be as perfect. So that's perfectly acceptable to get a little more creative, more willy-nilly with these lines. I'm going to start with, this is in the Asawa hogs that we have here at Conner Prairie. The Asaba Island hogs. I had to find the correct writing of it. All right, I'm going to draw the snout first. It's a circle. That's the jaw, really, and then the snout's at the top of that circle. I'm keeping the circles a little more perfect than they are, and as we go, I'll kind of make those a little more natural. Add the nostrils in. And then we're gonna add in the head, which goes above and below, and then the big old ears. So a little write-up on the Asaba Island hogs. They were brought to Asaba Island off the coast of Georgia by Spanish explorers in the 1500s, where they lived feral for almost 500 years. They're a hardy and self-sufficient animal, and they're able to survive in harsh environments. They can store massive amounts of body fat to survive seasons where there isn't much food available. Scientists believe they could be critical in discovering a cure for non-insulin dependent diabetes in humans, and they're listed by the Livestock Conservancy in the critical category. So Conner Prairie has a few of these guys hanging out. Fun story is that we have signs that say, you know, don't get close to these animals because they like to eat things, so you really don't want to get close. And those signs have actually been chewed on by the animals. So in case you wonder, you know, is this true? You can see for yourself. They will eat things that get put in front of them. So now we're kind of fleshing in the mouth, fleshing in ears, the eyes, very low set eye compared to the snout. There's a few cuts in the ears, don't know why, but it looks pretty cool. All right, now we're going to take the body of this animal, take it back, and we're going to take it down and draw in some legs. And the body will just kind of fade out over there. So it's really in the face, all the detail. The body's pretty simple, some legs, tube. And this animal has a bit of a pattern that I'll flesh out later. It's also got whiskers, which I'll add when I use the Sharpie, because that'll really make it pop. Let you guys catch up for a second. his mouth open there. That's what this is. So, kind of just sketching along, putting in the permanent lines will come when I bring in the Sharpie. So, we can do that now. How's it coming? If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment. So, you can start anywhere. I'm going to put my lines in, and then I'm going to come back with some hair lines. So don't get too solid with some of your lines. Keep them kind of light around the edges. So that's what these are. These are hair lines. Add in the mouth. He's in the midst of grunting, I think. So his mouth's kind of open. Some of these lines I'll make using hairs versus actual lines like this over here, because it gives it a more natural look, not so much a Porky Pig look, but an actual animal with hairs, and you can really feel the texture that way. But harder lines like the ears will initially come in with a harder line. So kind of fleshing your lines. I'm adding in some texture as well, some hair patterns. So don't get too solid with all your lines. Keep them kind of light. As we go into other elements of the pig, you'll see, or the hog, you'll see, it's nice to just flesh it in, not too solid. So these eyes have a bit of a glimmer in their eye, so they'll leave room for a little white dot. As you can see, it helps give some life to the eyes. That one over here too. My Sharpie actually bled so much it filled in the white dot, but so maybe don't get too close with your line as you're sketching it in. Adding some eyelashes, some more hairs rather than solid lines. There you go. Thanks, Shelley. So, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. Again, like I said, I'll be coming back with a cleaner version of this image for you guys to download if you want, share with your kids, print out in color, whatever you want. So now I'm kind of filling in some of these other lines that exist with some wavy lines that are supposed to represent hair. I'm also coming here with some of the whiskers. It's got a lot of whiskers when you get up close. Kind of pop all over. It's not an animal that shaves. You can fill in some of those rough patches, some of the pattern on the hog if you want. Kind of keep the lines in the same direction, they'll help. that nose pop a little more. This guy does have a bit of a pattern on his nose. And then, of course, the nostrils are pretty dark inside. So you can fill those in. It's also pretty dirty around the nose from sniffing in the mud. So we're going to add in some specks of dirt to represent that. Darkening in that ear because he's got a nice dark ear. And there you go. There's our Asawaba. Sorry, Ag, if you're watching this, I'm butchering the heritage breed's name, but Asaba Island Hog. Asababa. All right, I didn't mention the last basic drawing skill, but it's an ability to unconsciously draw a string, all your lines together. That comes with practice. So the basics of drawing are recognizing edges, lines, and angles, reckoning proportions and perspectives, so knowing that, you know, the animal goes back, so it gets narrow as it goes back. You know, stuff in the distance is further away, so it's smaller. So his body goes back, so it gets smaller. Deciphering shadow highlights and gradations of tone is the third basic skill. So shading in areas, that helps your image get that depth that you might be looking for. And then lastly, ability to unconsciously draw a string. All of these things together, which comes with practice. So that is your Asabawa Island Hog. There we go, guys. There are your two images. Curtis Home and the Asaba Island Hog. That's pretty much it for today, guys. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, this will be available on our YouTube channel as well. You can share that out. It'll be available on Facebook permanently in our Prairie at Home section. And these images will be available later, as well as last week's images of the balloon and the English Longhorn for you guys to download, to use, and color. Like I said, I didn't color this guy in because I chose to not color it in, but you could do some white, some dirty white fur down here and in the light parts, and then obviously the dark parts are just black. So there you go. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's session. I hope you can maybe join us again next week, or whenever the next session is, and we will get those drawing skills figured out. So thanks for participating, guys. Prairie at Home is sponsored by Roche Diagnostics USA. Appreciate them sponsoring this. It's been really fun to be able to get all this content home to you guys during these times, and we just hope you are enjoying them. And if you do any of these activities at home, we hope you share them with us so we can see what you've been doing. All right, guys, we hope you have a good rest of the day, and we will talk to you soon.